On the day I reunited with the richest Wang family, I didn't feel even the slightest joy. Instead, I turned around and dashed straight into the traffic at the crossroads. The whole family was terrified. It took coaxing and pleading to pull me back. All because the adopted son Makoto whispered in my ear, "Having one son in the Wang family is enough. You're just an extra hillbilly." I thought he was right. So later that night, I turned on the gas again and left behind a suicide note. "It's my fault for upsetting my brother. I'll take the whole family with me to paradise, so there will be no more troubles." The way my whole family looked at me was like they'd seen a ghost. Later, at a banquet, the adopted son and his gang of hoodlum friends pushed me into the swimming pool, but I didn't struggle. I just let my body slowly sink. Makoto had no choice but to jump in after me in panic, yelling, "You idiot. If you really drown, Mom and Dad will hate me. Can't you at least struggle a little?" What he didn't know was that I had resisted before, but every attempt only ended in another tragic death. And my parents and sister always sided with him. This is my 10th rebirth. This time, I've decided to completely give up and wholeheartedly seek death. But this time, aside from me, no one else can find peace. Chapter 1. My stomach burned as if set on fire. Scalded by the chlorine in the swimming pool, my sister pulled me out, and I lay over the pool's edge, barely breathing, coughing up a mouthful of water. Makoto's face instantly turned paper white. His gang of troublemaking buddies panicked as well, all talking over one another. "We were just messing with you." Yeah, how were we supposed to know he'd actually jump in? Who drowns without even flailing around? Was he trying to scam us or something? Wrapped in the cashmere coat my sister Alicia had taken off for me, I climbed out of the pool. Cold made me tremble uncontrollably, my teeth chattering, but I still forced a smile, looked at Makoto, and said, "Brother, you told me to go down, so I went. I listened to you." Makoto shivered under my gaze, retreating several steps, as if he'd seen something monstrous. He shouted, "What nonsense are you talking about? When did I ever tell you to go in?" He was so anxious he was nearly in tears as he turned to defend himself to our parents, who had rushed over. "Dad, Mom, don't listen to him. He's crazy. George is trying to frame me on purpose." My parents' expressions darkened. They frowned, looking at my soaking wet body. A boy in expensive designer streetwear stepped out, mustering the courage to speak. He jumped in by himself. We tried to save him, but he refused to come up. I peeked out from behind Alicia, eyes innocent, and said, "I didn't refuse to come up. It's just that whatever brother tells me to do, I have to do it well. Otherwise, brother won't be happy. If brother isn't happy, then sister and Mom and Dad won't be happy either." I looked at them, genuinely asking, "So what should I do to make you all happy?" The surroundings fell dead silent in an instant. Everyone stared at me as if I had lost my mind. Alicia's body stiffened. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging deeply into my flesh. "George, shut up," she shouted. Dad barked at the butler. "Take the young master back to his room. Call the doctor and have him checked." Then he turned to Makoto, his gaze unusually stern. "Makoto, you're coming with me." Makoto had always been the family's golden child. No one ever spoke harshly to him. Startled, his eyes reddened as he yelled anxiously, "Dad, it really wasn't me." Seeing the dark, heavy expressions on my family's faces, all I felt was exhaustion. "What do you want from me so you'll finally be satisfied?" Makoto's puppy went missing, yet I was the one collared, fed dog food, made to sleep in a doghouse, becoming his new plaything. He wanted to go camping with his friends, so he stuffed me into a sealed sleeping bag and kicked me down a slope. My head and body slammed against jagged rocks, pain so intense it numbed me, suffocating me. Looking at my twisted, mangled body, he only cast a condescending glance and said, "Looks like this sleeping bag's quality is terrible. I'll have to leave the seller a bad review." Good thing my little brother helped me test it. Whenever I resisted, Makoto would flip the narrative and frame me, and my parents and sister would take his side without question, scolding me. This time, I hadn't resisted Makoto's torment at all. "Mom, Dad, sister, why are you still unhappy?" Chapter 2. After the doctor finished examining me, Mom walked in carrying a cup of hot milk and sat by my bed. She looked at me with a complicated expression and spoke. "George, tell Mom the truth. Do you really hate this family?" I shook my head. "I don't." "Then why do you do those things? Why do you keep hurting yourself?" Holding the warm milk in my hands, I took small sips and answered her seriously. "I only want everyone to be happy." Mom's eyes turned red instantly. "You're my biological son. You don't need to please anyone." I set down the cup and looked up at her. "But after I came home, brother wasn't happy, and sister wasn't happy either. Mom, was it a mistake for you to find me?" My question left her speechless. She could only reach out and hug me. "No, George, you're not a mistake." Her embrace was warm, but it reminded me of another time, after one of my rebirths. Makoto had cut his own hand with a knife and collapsed into her arms crying. Her eyes were cold when she looked at me. She locked me in a pitch-black storage room and allowed Makoto to twist open the gas valve, telling me to reflect until I learned not to hurt my brother again. Back then, I didn't understand what I had done wrong, I only wanted to live and make everyone like me, but now, all I want is to die. And suddenly, Mom is telling me I'm her precious child. The next day, the family held a meeting. Makoto had cried all night, his eyes swollen like walnuts. He choked as he said, I really didn't push him. I was just scared. Scared that once he came back, you wouldn't want me anymore. Alicia felt sorry for him immediately and jumped to defend him. Mom, Makoto didn't mean it. He just has no sense of security. Look at George, he's only been back a few days and everything in this house is in chaos. She pointed at me with open disgust. He's not normal at all. Dad rubbed his temples and sighed helplessly. We can't go on like this. Find a psychologist for George. He needs proper counseling. On the day of the appointment, I cooperated exceptionally well. The doctor asked, and I answered, why do you keep thinking about dying? Sitting on the soft couch, I smiled and said, because it's the easiest way to make every problem disappear. The doctor pushed up his glasses, trying to guide me. But have you ever thought about this? If you die, the people who love you will be heartbroken. I blinked and asked curiously, love me? Do you mean like the caretakers at the orphanage, who said they loved me while watching me get beaten by other kids? Or like the trafficker, who told me I was his good boy while shoving me into a dog cage? Or maybe, like my sister, she warned me not to upset her beloved little brother, yet only pulled me out when I was about to drown. I leaned closer to the doctor and whispered, Doctor, they don't love me. They're just afraid I'll die in their house and cause them trouble. They think I'm sick and need fixing, but I'm not sick. I'm just following their orders. To make them happy, I do whatever they tell me to do. If they tell me to die, then I'll go die. Is that not allowed either? The doctor froze, pen suspended midair, his face drained of color. Chapter 3. The psychologist repeated every word I said to my parents, without changing a single syllable. His final diagnosis was, I wasn't sick. I was simply using the most extreme method to protect myself and to retaliate against the world. My mental state was like a string pulled to its absolute limit. The slightest pressure could snap it completely. My desire to die was, in his eyes, my way of self-preservation. After hearing this, Mom locked herself in her room for an entire day. Dad smoked one cigarette after another. Only my sister Alicia still insisted I was pretending, using pity as a weapon. George is acting. You're all being fooled. He just wants to push Makoto out. Makoto hid behind her, pretending to be frightened, but the glint of triumph in his eyes betrayed him. He said, Dad, Mom, don't worry. I'll get along with my brother. I'll help him recover from this condition. He probably thought that as long as Alicia believed him, he would never lose. The tension in the house grew heavier and heavier. To ease the situation, my parents decided to send me to the same elite academy Makoto and Alicia attended. They naively believed that being around normal kids my age might fix me. Makoto was the first to object. His eyes widened, and he couldn't help but scream, I don't want to go to the same school as him. My classmates will laugh at me. For the first time, Dad used a stern tone with him. This is not up for discussion. Makoto stormed back to his room in a rage, but I knew he wouldn't let this go. Sure enough, on my first day of enrollment, I became the center of the entire school, because everyone had heard. The real young master the Wangs brought home was a lunatic who had just come out of a psychiatric hospital. Makoto was constantly surrounded by friends comforting him while pointing fingers at me. Makoto, your brother looks so creepy, so gloomy. I heard he tried to turn on the gas and blow up the whole house. Isn't that literally insane? You better watch out, he might hurt you. With a wounded expression, Makoto replied, Don't say that. My brother is just ill. We're family. He would never hurt me on purpose. The more he defended me, the more terrifying people thought I was. Isolation naturally followed. No one talked to me. Someone drew chalk boundaries on my desk. My books were splattered with ink. I didn't care. Compared to what I experienced in the orphanage, this was child's play. During PE, the teacher let everyone move freely. The class sports rep assigned me to get basketballs from the equipment room. But the moment I stepped inside, the door clicked shut behind me. Instant darkness. Outside, I heard Makoto and his friends laughing. A psycho should stay locked up. Why did they let him out of the hospital? Makoto, do you think he'll go crazy in there and bite himself? Ha ha ha. Maybe. Why don't you peek through the crack and check? No way. There were 40 minutes until class ended. All I had to do was sit and wait. The darkness and cramped space gave me a rare sense of calm. I even began to feel drowsy. I didn't know how long had passed when an impatient voice called from outside. Hey, psycho inside, dead yet? If you're not dead, make a sound. I ignored him. A moment later, the voice returned, this time with a hint of panic. Why isn't he moving? Did something really happen? What are you afraid of? Even if something did happen, I'll still be filial to our parents. Makoto's voice let him figure out how to break the door. Let's go. Footsteps faded. I closed my eyes, ready for a good nap. Suddenly, the air filled with a pungent, choking smell. Smoke. Chapter 4. The fire spread rapidly. In less than 3 minutes, The thick smoke made it impossible to breathe. The entire equipment room felt like an enormous oven. I didn't call for help, nor did I pound on the door. I simply hugged a basketball and curled up in the corner furthest from the door. My consciousness began to fade. How nice. This time, I could finally succeed. No jumping off buildings, no turning on the gas, no being dragged back from the brink, quietly, without causing trouble for anyone. Just one more cycle to endure, and then I could finally leave this body behind and reincarnate. This body covered in scars, wrists broken countless times, calves full of burn marks. I wouldn't have to live this painful, desperate life anymore. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, a loud boom shattered the door as it was kicked open. A silhouette charged in against the flames and yanked me up from the ground. It was Alicia. Her entire body was blackened by smoke, her face filled with panic and fear. "George, wake up," she shouted as she held me tightly and rushed out through the fire. On the lawn outside, a large crowd had already gathered. Makoto and his circle of cronies watched me being carried out, their expressions a fascinating mix of shock, guilt, and a faint, barely noticeable disappointment. Laid on the grass, I greedily sucked in fresh air. Alicia knelt in front of me, speaking in a tone more frantic than I had ever heard from her. "Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" I looked at her and coughed violently, pressing a hand against a burn. "Sister, you saved me again." My voice was cold, but filled with genuine regret. "Why did you save me? I was so close to dying." Alicia's face turned ashen in an instant. She grabbed my shoulders and nearly roared. "Why didn't you call for help? Why didn't you break the door? Do you really want to die? George, what the hell are you trying to do?" I didn't answer her. Instead, I looked straight at Makoto in the crowd. He shot up like a startled cat. "It wasn't me. I didn't set the fire. I don't know how it started." His friends immediately echoed him. "We left ages ago. It has nothing to do with us. George went to get the basketball on his own. We just showed him where the equipment room was." At that moment, a security captain rushed over, panting as he reported to the school leaders. "We checked. It was caused by an electrical short circuit from old wiring in the equipment room. Just an accident." Relief washed over everyone. Makoto exhaled deeply, then immediately put on that familiar, fake, gracious expression. "George, I'm so glad you're okay. It's our fault. We shouldn't have joked around and let you go get the basketball alone." As he spoke, he reached out as if to help me up. I pulled away. It looked exactly like the reflex of someone who has been long abused, instinctive recoil, and in front of everyone, for the first time, I burst into loud, heartbreaking sobs. "Brother, I'm sorry. I should have stayed inside, but I don't like dark little rooms. Next time, can you give me a different way to die, please?" Chapter 5. The crowd around us exploded instantly. Everyone began whispering, guessing what my and Makoto's positions at home must be, and only then did they suddenly realize, our relationship, our way of getting along, had never been equal. Wait, could it be what I'm thinking? The adopted son actually bullying the real young master? Oh my god, no wonder George listens to him like that. Makoto clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white, trying desperately to explain, but almost no one was listening. Mom and Dad rushed home from the company late that night, only to walk into the living room and see the three of us facing off. Me, Alicia, and Makoto trembling like a leaf. What on earth happened? How did a fire start at the school? Alicia glanced at Makoto, then at my blank expression. Her lips moved, but in the end, she said nothing. Instead, Makoto threw himself into Mom's arms, crying as if the world had wronged him. "Mom, George has gone crazy. He wants to kill me." He said it himself. Mom held him and tried to soothe him softly, but her cold gaze shifted directly onto me. I ignored their performance and walked straight to Dad. The fire at school was an accident, but locking me in the equipment room wasn't. I lifted my head and looked him in the eyes. "Dad, didn't you always want to know what I went through? In a place just like that equipment room, dark, cramped, I was locked inside for 3 whole years. The food was rotten. My job every day was to go out and steal. If I didn't steal enough, I'd be beaten. If I cried, they'd shove razor blades into my mouth. The man who taught us his rules had a favorite game. He'd lock one of us in the little black room, then make the others guess how many days he'd last." I spoke calmly, as if telling someone else's story. In the living room, even the sound of breathing disappeared. Dad's face turned from dark to ghostly pale, his body swaying slightly. Mom covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Alicia's fists were clenched so tightly the joints cracked. She stared at me, shocked, devastated, in a way I had never seen before. I turned to Makoto and spoke expressionlessly. "So, brother, your games aren't funny to me at all. They remind me of a lot of very unpleasant things. And when I'm unhappy," I gave him a bright, cheerful smile, "I want everyone to be unhappy with me." Makoto trembled under my smile and screamed, "Enough." Dad's roar cut through his shriek. He pointed at Makoto, his voice filled with a fury and disappointment I had never heard from him. "Makoto, go to your room and reflect. You are not allowed out without my permission." Makoto stared at Dad in disbelief, then looked desperately at Mom and Alicia. Mom turned her face away, and Alicia simply stood there silently. For the first time, no one defended him. The farce ended with Makoto being placed under house confinement. Chapter 6. After the school fire and Makoto's confinement, Mom finally began investigating my past. She used every connection she had, starting from the small county where I'd been trafficked. Within a few days, a thick file folder appeared on her desk. Inside was the complete record of my life from age 3 to 16, including the case files of the trafficking ring that abducted me. The file documented their inhuman crimes in detail, and one name was highlighted repeatedly: Seven. The report said that Seven was the smallest and quietest child among the kidnapped kids, but he was also the only one who, after being rescued, could clearly draw the appearance of the ring's leader and a full map of their hideout. With the information he provided, the police were able to capture the entire criminal organization that had evaded justice for years. That Seven was me. Mom read every page and sat in her study all night long, motionless. The first thing she did afterward was dismiss every servant in the house and replace them with a team of professional security personnel. The second thing she did was personally go to the school and request that I take a leave of absence. She said, "Until my son truly gets better, I will not allow him to suffer even the slightest harm again." Dad did not object. Alicia was unusually silent. Makoto remained locked in his room. No one saw him except the person delivering meals. For the first time ever, this home built iron walls for me. I watched Mom's busy figure with no emotions in my heart. I knew this was only guilt, a compensation far too small, far too late, 13 years overdue. She wanted my forgiveness, compared to the despair of being pushed away again and again by the people I called family. Compared to the helpless deaths I lived through again and again, her compensation was far too light. Alicia no longer mocked me. She quietly brought me plates of cut fruit, or covered me with a blanket when I was reading. She tried to make up for the past, clumsy, cautious, awkward. One afternoon, when I was painting in the garden, Alicia walked over and sat beside me. She glanced at my canvas. It was covered in distorted, dark red strokes. She stayed silent for a long time before finally opening her mouth, voice strained. "George." "I'm sorry." I ignored her and continued spreading paint across the canvas. "I didn't know you." I put down my brush and turned to her. "You didn't know what? You didn't know I was kept in a dog cage, or you didn't know someone burned me with cigarette butts." I pulled up my sleeve, revealing the old, ugly scars lining my arm. Look, these scars had already faded, but Makoto used glass to cut them open again. Now they're new wounds. All color drained from Alicia's face. Her trembling hand reached out as if to touch the scars, but she couldn't form a single word. I pulled my arm back and picked up the paintbrush again. "Sister, I've received your apology, but I do not accept it. Because if apologies were enough, why would we need the police?" I looked at her pale face and said softly, "If a murderer apologizes, do the dead come back to life?" Alicia froze as if struck by lightning, completely motionless. Chapter 7. Makoto was confined for half a month. During these 2 weeks, he went from crying and refusing to eat, to eventually becoming quiet and obedient. He thought that as long as he behaved, Mom and Dad would soften. Unfortunately for him, he miscalculated this time. Mom was determined to deal with him properly. Finally, Makoto couldn't endure it anymore. He used a hidden shard of porcelain to cut his wrist. It wasn't deep, but enough to throw the whole household into chaos once again. He was rushed to the hospital. Lying on the bed, Makoto sobbed weakly, breath trembling. "Mom, I was really wrong. Please don't abandon me. I won't dare do anything anymore. I'll listen to everything you say. Please don't send me away." But Mom's eyes held no pity, only cold disappointment. "Makoto, do you remember the day you came to our home?" Makoto froze. "That day, you were small and thin. You held my hand and said you would be obedient, that you would listen. We believed you. We treated you as our own child. We gave you all the love and all the guilt that should have belonged to George. But you..." Mom shook off his hand. "You learned to lie, to act, to bully your own brother. You used our love as a weapon to do whatever you pleased. Makoto, you've disappointed me too deeply." She turned and walked away without a trace of hesitation. Makoto completely panicked. He struggled to get out of bed, but Alicia pressed him down. "Sis, please, help me," begged Mom. "Please." Alicia lowered her gaze. Her expression complicated. "You were wrong because you used the suffering he endured as a weapon to hurt him. You knew those were his hells, yet you kept pushing him back into them." This was the first time I ever heard Alicia speak for me. Makoto was stunned. "I didn't. I just..." Alicia cut him off. "You were just afraid he'd take everything from you, so you wanted to destroy him first. Have you ever thought, if you were the one who got found, and George was the adopted child in your place, what would he have done to you?" Makoto couldn't answer, because he knew the truth. If our roles had been reversed, with my personality, I would have stepped aside quietly and returned everything to him. I would never have done the things he did. Makoto's suicide attempt not only failed to gain sympathy, it completely destroyed the last bit of trust anyone had in him. On the day he was discharged, Mom and Dad informed him calmly, "We have already contacted your biological parents." Makoto's pupils shrank violently. "No, no, I don't want to go back. They'll kill me." He shook his head like mad. His face drained of color. Dad looked at him, voice cold. "That is your family matter. From today on, you and the Wong family no longer have anything to do with each other." Chapter 8. Makoto's biological parents arrived soon after. A pair of seemingly honest but sharp-eyed middle-aged peasants. The moment they stepped inside, they bowed repeatedly to my parents, their faces full of obsequious smiles. When their eyes landed on Makoto, there was no joy of reunion, only a blatant, calculating appraisal, as if assessing the value of goods. In-laws, look at the trouble we've caused." Makoto's birth father rubbed his hands together, grinning. "The kid's not sensible, must have caused you a lot of trouble." Mom stared at them coldly. "We are no longer in-laws. We called you here today to return your child to you." The couple froze for a second, then quickly plastered on even more flattering smiles. "No, no, Makoto is better off with you. We countryside folks don't know how to raise kids. We're willing to sell him to you completely. Any price is fine." Bang. Dad slammed his fist on the table, the impact making the teacups jump. "Get out." He pointed at the door, veins bulging on his forehead. "Take your son and get out of here this instant." Terrified, the couple dared not say another word. They grabbed the screaming, struggling Makoto and dragged him toward the entrance. Makoto went hysterical. He clung to the doorframe with all his strength, his nails bending backward. "Dad, Mom, Sis, I was wrong. I don't want to go with them. They're monsters." His once delicate face was twisted grotesquely by fear. Outside, a woman's curses and a man's impatient shouts echoed down the hall. "What are you crying for? You useless brat. If you weren't so worthless, would we have to come all the way here? Hurry up. If we get back late, your brothers and sisters will starve to death." The voices faded gradually into the distance. The living room fell into a suffocating silence. Mom finally broke down, covering her face as she cried quietly. Dad slumped onto the sofa, looking as though he had aged 10 years in an instant. Alicia stood by the window, staring at the direction Makoto was dragged away, unmoving. I sat in the corner and watched everything. No sense of revenge, no sympathy, nothing. I stood up, ready to go back to my room, but Alicia suddenly turned around and called out, "George." She walked toward me, her bloodshot eyes swollen, her voice hoarse. "He came from that place too, didn't he?" I raised an eyebrow. "What place?" She forced herself to say it. "That place you talked about, that dark place. He was one of those children too." I looked at her, and suddenly laughed softly. "Sister, you're only figuring that out now. Why do you think Mom and Dad coincidentally adopted him while searching for me all those years ago? Because he looked like me." Alicia's face went paper white. Chapter 9. Alicia's guess was correct. Makoto was indeed one of the children who had been trafficked with me. He was 1 year older than me. In that organization, his code name was 6. He was clever, good at reading people's expressions, sweet-tongued, adaptable. So compared to kids like me, who only knew how to get beaten, he lived slightly better. By the time my parents followed the clues to that village all those years ago, I had already been taken elsewhere. They only found Makoto, locked in a woodshed by his biological parents, beaten half to death, because his eyes resembled mine. Mom had felt a surge of compassion. They paid a sum of money to buy him from his gambling-addicted parents, and then poured all the love and guilt that should have been mine into this substitute. They gave him the best life, raised him into a prince, never imagining they had raised a white-eyed wolf. Alicia looked at me with tortured eyes, then suddenly collapsed to her knees with a thud. I was startled and took a step back. She bowed her head, her voice full of repentance. "George, I'm sorry. You can hit me, or take revenge however you want, as long as it makes you feel better." I looked at her, finding it almost amusing. "Sister, you must be mistaken. To me, you're the same as Makoto, the same as all the people who hurt me. You're all irrelevant." "I don't care." I walked past her, ready to go upstairs, but she suddenly reached out and grabbed my ankle. "George, I know I deserve to die, but we're siblings. Blood is blood, nothing can change that. Please, give me another chance, just one." I lowered my head, looking at the hands gripping my leg. After a moment of silence, I said, "Okay." She jerked her head up, a flicker of hope lighting her eyes. I crouched down, meeting her gaze with a pure, angelic smile. "You want to make it up to me? That's simple." I pointed to the tall sycamore tree outside the window. "Jump from there. As long as you don't die, I'll forgive you." The joy on Alicia's face froze instantly. Chapter 10. After Makoto was sent away, the house became frighteningly quiet. Mom and Dad tried to make up for everything by doubling their affection and material care, but I remained like an outsider. They took me to the best psychologists. The doctor said my PTSD was severe and required long-term treatment. So every weekend, Alicia drove me to therapy. We didn't speak at all during the rides. She acted like a dutiful chauffeur, and I like an emotionless passenger. That day, after the session ended, a sudden heavy rain began halfway home. The wipers swished frantically, but the road ahead was still a blur. We waited at a red light. I turned my head casually and saw a familiar figure outside the window. Makoto. He stood under a broken umbrella, tugging at a man outside a convenience store. The man wore a filthy tank top. On his exposed arm was a terrifying snake-shaped tattoo. It was him. The man who had taught us to steal. The man who had taught us fear. My blood froze instantly. The man looked impatient. He snatched something from Makoto's hand and shoved him roughly. Makoto fell into a puddle, soaked and crying miserably. The man didn't even look back. He just walked away. The light turned green. Alicia pressed the accelerator, and the car began moving forward slowly. I suddenly said, "Stop the car." Alicia paused, glancing at me through the rearview mirror. "What did you say?" I said, "Stop the car." My voice was sharp, trembling with emotion. She frowned but pulled the car over. I unbuckled my seatbelt, pushed the door open, and ran into the rain. Makoto saw me as if he had seen a ghost, scrambling to get up. I didn't look at him. I looked in the direction that man had disappeared. Why is he here? Makoto was drenched, shaking violently, lips turning purple. I don't know. I don't know. What did he want from you? He told me to steal stuff. I refused, so he hit me. He took all the money my parents gave me, he sobbed. I looked at his pitiful state, yet felt no sympathy at all. Fate was truly amusing. He stole my life. And now he was suffering the pain that should have been mine. At that moment, Alicia ran over with an umbrella. When she saw Makoto on the ground, her brows tightened. "Get in the car, we'll talk there." She reached out to help him, but I stopped her. "Don't touch him." I looked at Makoto coldly. This was his choice, wasn't it? Alicia froze. Rain blurred my vision, but I could feel that hateful, unwilling stare burning into my back. Chapter 11. I never expected to see that man again. That night, Alicia had an important business banquet. Mom and Dad were on a business trip. I was the only one at home. Late at night, a faint noise downstairs woke me. Silently, I walked to the second floor railing and looked down. There were 3 shadows rummaging through the living room. One of them was the men with the snake tattoo I'd seen earlier that day. They were here to steal. I didn't shout. I didn't call security. I simply returned to my room, locked the door, and took out my phone. I dialed a number. Alicia's. The call rang for a long time before she picked up. It was noisy on her end. "Hello. Sis, there are burglars in the house." I said it as casually as stating the weather. Alicia paused. Then her voice dropped into urgent panic. "Don't be scared. Call the home security team right now. Hide somewhere safe. I'm coming back immediately." I said, "No, I only need you to do one thing." "What thing?" "Call the police," I said quietly, looking out the window. "Tell them there's a home invasion, and the intruders are armed." Alicia sharply inhaled. "Armed? George, are you sure? Don't do anything stupid." I hung up. Then I opened my wardrobe and dragged out the heavy toolbox hidden in the back, the one I had asked Mom to buy for me. It contained all kinds of toys. I picked the one that felt most familiar in my hand. Downstairs, the 3 intruders had already emptied the living room and were heading up. The man with the snake tattoo looked up and saw me standing at the top of the stairs. He froze for a moment, then broke into a twisted grin. Well, isn't this 7? What a coincidence. Never thought the Wong family's precious young master would be you." The 2 lackeys behind him snickered. "Boss, this kid's really living it up now. A few coins slipped from his fingers could feed us for years. A wild chick turned phoenix. Shouldn't he take care of his dear old brothers?" The tattooed man licked his lips, approaching step by step. 7. You really made life tough for me back then. How do you plan to make it up to me today?" I looked at him without any expression. When he finally reached me and reached out to grab me, I pressed the stun gun in my hand directly and mercilessly to his neck. Zzzzzztt. With a sharp crackle of electricity, the burly man convulsed violently, foam bubbling from his mouth, before collapsing flat onto the floor. The 2 underlings stared in frozen horror. I shook the stun gun lightly, then smiled at them. The same harmless, innocent smile I had back then. Who's next? Chapter 12. The police and Alicia arrived almost at the same time. When they broke through the door, they were greeted by a scene so surreal it looked staged. 3 grown men, tied together in a grotesque knot, dumped in the center of the living room, all of them bruised, swollen, and pitiful beyond words. And me? I was sitting on the sofa, sipping a cola with my legs crossed, casually watching TV. When they entered, I even greeted them politely. "Hello." Every officer stared at me, dumbfounded. Alicia rushed over, grabbing my arms and checking me from head to toe. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Are you okay?" I shook my head. What could possibly happen to me? They're the ones who had a rough night. The leading officer finally snapped out of it and stepped forward, looking at me with genuine admiration. Kid, impressive. You took them down by yourself. I nodded. When I called you, I said they had a gun, right? Alicia asked anxiously. The officer shook his head. We searched thoroughly. No firearms found. Alicia froze. She slowly turned toward me, confusion filling her eyes. I blinked at her playfully. Oh, maybe I was mistaken, I said lightly. It was dark. The police quickly hauled the 3 intruders away. Before leaving, the men with the snake tattoo glared at me, hatred burning so intensely it was almost tangible. I wasn't afraid at all, because I knew he would never get out again, armed robbery or not. His long criminal history was enough to bury him in prison until he died. Soon, the living room was empty except for me and Alicia. She stared at the mess, then at my calm expression, struggling to find her voice. George, you want to ask why I'm not afraid, right? I stood up and walked toward her. Sis, do you know something? Living hurts. It always has. I used to wonder every single day how I could finally die. But now, I don't want to die anymore. I lifted my head and met her eyes. Each word came out sharp and crystal clear, because I realized something. Watching the people who should have died disappear one by one is much more interesting than dying, whether it's Makoto or them. Anyone who hurt me will pay. Alicia stared at the cold smile on my face, a smile far too dark for someone my age. She took a step back, instinctively. At that moment, she finally understood. I wasn't healed. I was simply continuing my madness, in a different way. Chapter 13. A few years later, I received an admission letter from a university abroad. Before I left, Alicia came to see me off. She handed me a box. This is from Mom and Dad. They asked me to give it to you. Inside was an anonymous black card and a set of keys. They bought you a house abroad, right next to your school. I accepted the items and said thank you. It was the first time since I came back that I genuinely said that word to her. She froze for a moment, then smiled, a smile tinged with bitterness. George, live well over there. Forget everything here. I looked at her, smiled too, and said, I can't forget, but I will try. I'll try to live like a normal person. When the plane took off, I looked at the shrinking city outside the window, feeling completely calm. I reincarnated 10 times, all for the sake of reclaiming the 13 years of life that were stolen from me. As for those nightmares from the past, they'll never have a chance to appear in my life again. I am no longer the 7 who could only cry and beg for mercy. I am George, the George who will kick every demon trying to drag me into hell down there before they get the chance.